when I came to Miami, I thought I wanted to be a pre-law major, but there was no such thing as pre-law, so I was going to stay in the political science department, which was kind of pre-law-esque. And it wasn't until I had my first international relations course that I realized I was in the right department with the wrong focus, and dumped pre-law and focused on international relations and foreign policy. There were both professors and alumni that actually sort of shaped me. The only reason I came to visit Miami is a friend of my father's said, oh, if you were visiting Notre Dame and Urbana-Champaign and Earlham, you should just go across the border and look at Miami, Ohio. That's where I went. It's a good school. And based on that, we thought we were in the area. Let's go look. Your admissions office was very nice and said, oh, arrange a tour and talk to professors. And it was wonderful. And like, as I mentioned earlier, I fell in love with the campus, and that was it. When I came to Miami, and realized I wanted to do international relations and really go on to graduate school, my two of my professors actually discouraged me pretty heavily for about 3 times. And when I came back the 4th time, they said, oh, you're actually really serious about this, so now we will be incredibly helpful. And so Pat Haney and Laura Neek in particular spent a lot once they knew that I was serious and wanted to do this, they spent an awful lot of time saying, okay, now we'll sort of take you under our wing and we'll sort of shape you and help you and teach you sort of the secret handshake of a wannabe political scientist. It was wonderful. But I had to sort of show that this was more than just a passing fancy. I was serious about this. Miami's preparation for what I'm doing now was almost accidental. Miami trained me how to think. It trained me how to look at problems. It trained me how to integrate, evaluate different kinds of evidence, articulate an argument, deal with sort of problems that don't have an easy resolution, but you can sort of frame them differently and investigate them. And I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with that once I had that. And it turns out that's really sort of fundamental to pretty much anything you want to do. It revolves around these skills. But I didn't necessarily know that I'm going to get these particular skills so I could go and get this particular job. Right now I work for Northrop Grumman, which is an aerospace and defense contractor. And honestly, the very first boss I ever had phrased it perfectly. Our position in the United States is to help the good guys get the bad guys safely and make a buck for ourselves if we can. And I can't argue with that as a mission for life. For an incoming student in Miami, I would encourage them not to have a career plan, because any career that you think looks good when you're a freshman, by the time you get out and graduate and are prepared for that career, it's a good chance that career won't exist anymore, or everybody else will have flooded into it, or all sorts of other things may have happened. So if you're planning a career around a particular job, that's a mistake. Think about what's exciting, think about what you like to do, and think about how I can continue to always learn, because if you can be excited about a topic and you can always learn, you'll always adjust to whatever the interesting career is by the time you graduate, or you're at mid-career level, or even when you're ready to retire and start a new career. As long as you're willing to learn, you can always find something. I think liberal arts education is important because it teaches you how to think. It doesn't teach you a subject matter, it doesn't teach you names and dates and formulae. It teaches you how I can integrate evidence, how I can evaluate arguments, how I can articulate arguments. And names and dates and formulae you can always sort of look up. Sort of accounting rules and things like that and laws change over time, but that ability to constantly evaluate evidence never goes out of date. And so if you can pick that up from liberal arts education, which trains you to do, it doesn't matter if it's taught through history because you love history, or taught through classics because you love the ancient Greeks, or taught through political science because you are a current events junkie, or taught through arts because you happen to love painting. You're learning how to evaluate and think, and however you got that message will be something you can carry forward for whatever you want to do. I think it's important to come back to the university, first of all, for a very, very selfish reason. It wasn't until I knew that I was coming back that I actually began to reflect and integrate what it was I'd actually gotten out of Miami. I knew it was helpful, but I hadn't actually said, okay, now I have to think, we won't talk about how long after I graduated. I now have to think what it was I actually learned. How do I codify this? How do I look back at these moments and see what were truly sort of transformational moments, and what was just sort of fun stuff on the side, and what really was I worrying about that I shouldn't have been worrying about at all? And that self-reflection I thought was probably, selfishly for me, the best thing to come out of it. That said, I understand the students get a lot out of it too, and if that's the case, that's wonderful. I'm very happy for them and hope they continue to do so. 10 years from now, I hope I will still be helping the good guys getting the bad guys safely and making a buck if we can. Unfortunately, there are always going to be bad guys in the world, and I think I'd like to keep playing a part in stopping them.